Hello everyone. Today I'm going to present a use case on a video to show how to execute a local application in Docker on GCP. The goal is to show how to securely run this application locally with Docker because sometimes we need to execute and test our application locally before to deploy it, for example, in the cloud environment. And that's why today I wanted to show how to authenticate our local machine in GCP securely with application default credential, and then how to pass this configuration to our Docker file, and is the goal today for this application. And firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Mazloum Tosun. I am a co-founder and CDO at Group Biz, that is a IT consulting company in France. And I am also a Google developer expert in GCP and also a Docker captain. And today for this use case, I will previously in Docker, some people, when these people wanted to test their application in Docker, the bad reflex and the old way was to, for example, to create a long-lived service account token key, store this file in their project without pushing this file to a GitHub repository. But sometimes developers copied this file in the Docker file in order to make possible to this Docker file to be authenticated to GCP. It's not a recommended way because it's not secure to generate a long-lived service account key because we need to rotate this key and manage it, and it's not also secure to copy this file in the Docker file because some people could retrieve this credential for the bad reasons. And with Docker history, we can also, it's easy to retrieve this credential if it's copied in the Docker file. And that's why today there is another secure way to do that. We can firstly authenticate our local machine in GCP with application default credential, ADC. With this command line, gcloud auth application default login, it will authenticate our local machine in GCP and generate a short-lived credential in a known path. After this, all the client code in GCP and all the applications can use this concept of ADC and to search if a short-lived token exists in the known path. And in this case, the applications can execute and can be authenticated in GCP securely with the current user and with this current short-lived token. With this technique of ADC, we can, on the new way and the best way, we can mount as volume the current local gcloud configuration in the Docker file. If we mount this configuration, our Docker file can be authenticated in GCP securely with a short-lived token. And there is also another advantage for this technique. The Docker file remains very clean, and there is no other layers and command lines dedicated to secret and so on. However, our Docker file is really clean, and it's also ISO with our Docker file in the cloud environment. If, for example, my Docker file is executed locally and with by Cloud Run, for example, my Docker file is the same and there is no difference, and it's really easy to test our application locally and in the cloud environment in the same way, and that's why this technique is really interesting. I finished to present the architecture, and I created a dedicated project to show the different files for this use case and this demo. I have a Python application, and my Python application will have some input data, and at the end we will load this data to a BigQuery table. It's a really classical GCP and Python application that uses some GCP Python client, and my application is really easy and it corresponds to a Python module. My Python application is packaged and prepared with UV, that is a package manager in the Python ecosystem. I really recommend to use UV because it's really fast and it is faster than usual pip or pipenv or poetry. That's why today it's more interesting and more efficient to use UV to prepare and install all the Python packages. For example, I have this pyproject.toml file. With this block, I have all my dependencies. I need to have the BigQuery Python client because I load my data to BigQuery in my Python application. I also have some other Python application to apply my logic, and also maybe I can test my code with PyTest. My pyproject.toml file is prepared, and I have, for example, a command line that I can execute locally with UV. I have the UV-sync command line. The UV-sync command line will install all my Python packages and generate a UV-lock file. The UV-lock file generates a hash for each package, and I then will show you the Docker part. For the Docker part, I use the multi-stage build. I have a first stage that use the UV base image. I set the working directory and I then copy the pyproject.toml file and also the UV log file in my Docker file. After this, I use this command line to use a cache for UV and the other command line to install all the Python packages with UV. Here, I only want to install the packages, no need to package the application with UV because it's packaged directly in my Docker container. And this stage, prepare the packages and install the packages and copy also the code. It's really important to copy and install the Python packages before to copy the applicative code in my Docker file because I want to use the Docker cache, and the Docker cache work layer by layer from the top to bottom. If a layer is changed, the other layers will be invalidated. And that's why my Python packages doesn't depend on my applicative code and applicative part, and that's why it's really important to copy and install my Python packages before to copy the applicative code. Because if my applicative code change, I don't cancel the Python packages. The Python packages doesn't depend on the applicative part. And when I finish to prepare this layer, I have this final stage with Docker, because I don't need in my final image some elements like UV, for example. UV, it's only needed to install my packages and prepare my application, but at the end, I can use another image without UV, for example, in order to have a small image and a more secure image. In this final stage, I copy all the packages and the application from the previous stage to the final stage, because with UV, all the packages are was installed in the VM folder, and with this command line, I add in the current path all the elements provided by the current virtual environment. At the end, I want to launch my application in Docker, not with the default root user, but with a dedicated user for this application. I have, for example, with this command line, I can add a user called World Cup Stat user. I give the permission to this user to the current working directory because it's needed. I set the user, and then I have a default command line with the entry point in my Docker file, and with CMD I add all the optional parameters. And here I launch my Python application, my Python module with -m, and I target on the file that contains the main method. My Docker file is okay. I finish to show it, and after this, in my README file, I prepared some command lines. I have the Docker build command line to build my Docker application locally, and then I have the Docker run command line. I can pass an environment variable if needed, and the most important part here is the when we will be authenticated in GCP, we will mount as volume the current G-Cloud configuration to my Docker file in the current user, and it will allow my Docker file and container to be authenticated in GCP and launch my application without pollute the Docker file. I can execute the Docker build firstly to build my application with Docker. It's okay. I need then to be authenticated to GCP with ADC, application default credential, with my current user Mazloum Tosun. It's okay. I need to set my password again here. And normally, my current shell session is authenticated in GCP, and my short-lived credential was saved in this known path and in the current G-Cloud configuration. And I have this file, application default credential.json. I will then run my application with Docker, with ADC, and the volume mount. And normally, my application will work correctly, and I have my final log that indicated that my data was inserted correctly to BigQuery. And it's really cool, really interesting, because here my Docker file is really clean. I don't need to copy a secret on my Docker file. It's not secure, it's not convenient. And it's really great to have the same way between my local execution and my execution in the cloud environment. In a next video, I will show also how to, I will be more focused on UV and how to deploy an application from UV and then to deploy it in Cloud Run, and stay tuned. And I am really happy to share my knowledge to the community, and feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel in order to help our work for the Google Cloud community. And see you soon. It was a pleasure. Bye bye.